Thank you, guys. So what we're on to now is the big part, the second part of this lesson, the big part. And what we're looking at is significance, because for each event that you're going to be doing, the 4 events you're going to be doing, all of them have played a part in leading to World War II being a victory for the Allies and against Germany. And when we look at significance, there isn't really one rule for significance. There's lots of different types, but the way that we're going to be looking at significance here in this school is, was the event great? And by that, what I mean are these acronyms you can see down here. So you've got G stands for groundbreaking. So was the event groundbreaking? Did it involve a new tactic, new technology? Was there something new? Were there new jobs available? Were there new responsibilities? Has it been something that's not been done before? Is it groundbreaking? Is it the first of its type? Is it the first of its kind? Is it the biggest of its kind, perhaps? The second thing for great is remembered. Is it an event which is nationally remembered? Is it important for us? Is it important to a particular country? Is it something we study? Obviously, we're studying it now. But does it appear in books, stories, films? Look it up on the internet. There was a film called Battle of Britain. And if you guys actually look at, have you seen Pearl Harbor, the film with Ben Affleck, which was historically fun? There's a scene where Ben Affleck actually participates in the Battle of Britain. He actually comes over as a pilot first, fights in the Battle of Britain, and then when Pearl Harbor happens, he's back there, and he's in all the action, isn't he? But is it portrayed in films? Is this event, the Battle of Britain, nationally remembered? Is it important? So you can look up, why is the Battle of Britain important? But you should be able to use the resources I'm about to give you. When we look at great, we also look at the effects. Did it have far-reaching effects? Is it something that was important for the entire planet? Is it something that was important for the whole war? Not just here. If it's only really that we cared about it, then it's not that important. But is it far-reaching? Does it have ripple effects later on? We know, and when you come to read more information about it, we know that Hitler he postpones the Battle of Britain and moves on to something else instead, which is going to be really important, but I'm not going to tell you what. That will become later on, and you'll get that later in the story. Does it affect the future? For A, does it affect the future? Is it something then that's now changed the pattern of events? Was Hitler doing really well, and now he's lost, and now it's changed everything? Is it something that's had a massive effect on society, on Britain? For one thing, for example, Battle of Britain, it certainly united Britain together, made them steadfast, motivated them to, keep calm and carry on. Is that something, is there more when you come to do your reading that's going to be evident in that? And was the event terrifying? I mean, what was it like for the people who were there? Was it incredibly scary for the people in Britain? Was it scary for the pilots flying? Was it scary for the German pilots? Is this an event that's terrifying, shocking, dreadful, awful? Because if it was a pretty easy and low-key thing, obviously it's not that significant. But if it's got that terror element, that people were literally afraid of this thing, then maybe it had a much bigger significant impact. And so that's the criteria we use, GREAT. Use that acronym. And this is what you're going to do with it. So what I've done on the right-hand side, you can see I've made a sort of a mind map, which you guys can do as well. You can just draw lines. And what I've done is, in the link below, I've attached a document that is called Sources. And it looks a little bit like this. If I can figure out how to do a new share, hold on. I'm onto my sources. Here they are. If I say share. Right, so this is what it looks like. This is what the document looks like. So you get source A, source B, yada, yada, yada. There's quite a lot of sources. You don't have to use them all, but it would be good if you glanced at them all. You don't have to write reams and reams about each one, but what you do need to do is start looking at each source. So for example, source B, this was the biggest battle, the biggest air battle in history. Well, that is important. If we go back to our PowerPoint, that probably fits in somewhere, doesn't it? It probably fits if I go back to the PowerPoint. It probably fits in. It could be that it was far-reaching. It could be groundbreaking because it's the biggest of its kind. Use those sources and try and put bits of information in. Oh, it was the biggest battle of all time. Boom. Oh, this many people died. Oh, this led to Hitler now, the first ever defeat Hitler have ever had. Right, great. Affects the future. Or, a pilot said it was awful because he was flying around, right? Terrifying. You know, add bits of information where it goes onto your mind map. You know, using the criteria. Once you start building that mind map, you have an idea as to how significant this battle really is. And then you'll do the same thing for Stalingrad, Pearl Harbor, and D-Day. Therefore, you will know, then you'll be able to judge, well, which one was the biggest turning point, which one actually had the biggest effect, and which one was the most important, significant. Weighing up all that information is a bit like what you guys did when you did JFK. We taught you a theory. We taught you a theory. We taught you a theory. You used it all to say what you thought. It's the same thing. We're talking about 4 different events, and you're going to pick 3 in the end to write about which one was the most important, most significant turning point that changed the whole face of the war, and for what reasons. You know, is it because it's the biggest plane battle? Did the most tanks? Did it have the most deaths? Did it change everything? You know, that's what you're going to be looking at. So guys, what I'd like you to do now is pause the video, please, and it's just going to take you a little bit of time because you've got to look through all the sources. It could take you half an hour. It could take you 40 minutes. But to put the time in, guys, and complete a diagram that has, you know, was it groundbreaking? Was it remembered by all? Using those sources, put them in where they belong. Okay? And what I've done is I've put a challenge at the bottom of the screen, is if you finish, maybe you could color code the most important pieces of information, making it significant, things that make it stand out. If you just highlight maybe the key bits, because when you come to write it, it'll just stand out to you then as, oh, I need to mention these things in my paragraph. So if I bring myself down here just to block it, this ugly little face, there he is, hello, blocked you. Right, what we want to do is just quickly model source K. I just thought it'd be easier if we just did one together. So this is an eyewitness, so someone who was there describing the fighting. He was watching it. Obviously he's from the ground, he wouldn't have been from a plane, he would have been down low. So let's have a look. That day, 2 planes had appeared from behind a feathery, frothy white cloud, the attacker and the attacked, as one streaked away, veering sideways to avoid the burst of gunfire that could plainly be heard. The other again zoomed upwards. In that momentary silence, there was a tiny cough and a splutter, as if the engine of the plane was emitting a half-strangled death cry. There's some quite vivid words there, before finally bursting into flames and beginning its dizzy spiral descent into the cold waters below. Witnessing this tragic episode affected me deeply. Okay, so we've got some personal feelings there. I watched the bystanders who were beginning to leave the area, some shaking their heads sadly before walking on to attend to their own affairs. I felt suddenly very cold and empty. I wanted an answer to all this insane killing and aggression. I was very aware of being pregnant and creating life. Oh, so it's a woman. Okay, there we go. First hint that it's actually a lady. While men were wasting it. It was terrifying to think about what would happen if we lost. So naturally, if you look at the criteria there, groundbreaking, remembered, events, affected, terrifying. Obviously, this one seems like it's about a person's experience. It mentions maybe perhaps that how she feels. What she's worried about. So perhaps, and she describes in quite vivid detail in the first paragraph, that first time she's seen a battle with all the air and the spluttering and the flying and the violence. So you really could fit that into, say, the terrifying box and describe maybe just some of the things that people felt when they saw these battles. That's what I would do. And so maybe just a quick summary of that into the terrifying box. And it might be something that she remembers as well, but maybe that's where you need to start. Right, that should take you about 40 minutes. So if you pause the screen and have a go.